Tons of major news stories in today's video. As always, timestamps in the description down below. We're going to kick things off talking about name changes, something that Vince McMahon, for some reason, absolutely loved to do. In fact, I wasn't always against the idea of a name change as long as there was like some reason or logic behind it. But still, it doesn't mean you have to change everybody's name, especially when they're coming from NXT to the main roster. Well, PW Insider has pretty much come out, and I thought this was really interesting because obviously Johnny Gargano came back. He's still using his same name. Same thing applied to Dexter Lumis. We saw Dakota Kai came back. She kept her same name. There has been a lot of talk about name changes in WWE and what is to be expected with Vince McMahon under creative leadership. Now, basically, it is being said that WWE does not have plans to do name changes, especially if you're coming up from NXT to the main roster. But there is always the possibility that WWE will do this, obviously, for new talent that are under like the NIL program or whatever it may be. But if you're like an independent wrestler, if you're MJF, if you're Jade Cargill, Wardlow, like if you're one of those people from AEW that could potentially jump to WWE, more than likely your name will not be changed. And I think this is a good idea for WWE. You got to continue to use what works. Don't break it if it is not broken. You know what I mean? But this is actually a good thing because it's leading to good backstage morale. Actually, a lot of changes right now in WWE have led to good backstage morale. PWInsider.com brought out some very interesting stuff. They reported that the old feeling in the company has quickly faded away and replaced instead with a renewed hope and pride for those working for the company. One department where the change has been described as massively night and day is actually the production under the new regime and how it's so different from how Vince handled things. It was said that there isn't anyone yelling at the production truck or the announcers anymore, which I'm sure if you're on commentary, that is a wonderful thing. It's been well documented in the past. So many people have talked about it. Vince McMahon constantly yelling in the headset. But a lot of people are actually really happy in WWE right now. A lot of wrestlers, a lot of production people, announcers, cameramen. There's a lot of people who are just extremely happy over, some of the changes that WWE has brought forth. And this is a really good thing for the overall growth of the company. And of course, obviously for the talent as well. If you're somebody who wants to go to WWE, you've always kind of imagined going to WrestleMania and having those big moments. And of course, in the past, it might have been kind of a big turnoff when you realize that the boss isn't always that nice or always that great. So it appears now that's completely changed, and we'll kind of see what this leads to with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan running the show. Now, obviously, things get very interesting here because Johnny Gargano came into WWE last night on Raw. He returned, and now Slice Wrestling, who was the one who originally broke the news weeks and weeks ago about Johnny Gargano coming back to WWE, Slice Wrestling came out with a very interesting report. So basically, Johnny Gargano had discussed possibly signing with AEW, but then, of course, Triple H taking over leadership was something that was too exciting for Gargano to turn down. Now, with that being said, both Shawn Michaels and Triple H are fans of Johnny Wrestling's work, and Gargano will be presented as a major star on the Raw brand. Theory will be one of Gargano's first matches and will play onto the history between the two men shared with The Way, which was their stable from NXT. The group was led by Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae and also included Austin Theory, Indy Hartwell, and then, of course, Dexter Lumis. Triple H, along with the WWE Creative Department, has discussed Theory losing his Money in the Bank contract, briefcase, in a stipulation match against other superstars, and one of those superstars is possibly Johnny Gargano. This is actually really interesting because I talked about this idea on Twitch. It appears now it's in the report. Triple H sees Johnny Gargano as a major force, and a DIY reunion with Ciampa has also been discussed as a tag team for obviously because they're a fan favorite. A DIY tag team championship run on the main roster would most certainly pique fan interest in creating in-ring exciting matchups. Guys, this is big plans. Obviously, Ciampa and Gargano coming back together as DIY. It would be really massive. And I really do like this idea that WWE is going to push them. Guys, what about the WWE Draft? Well, Fightful Select actually had dropped a very interesting report today. Fightful previously reported that several Raw wrestlers were scheduled for the first SmackDown following Clash at the Castle. And the idea was that SmackDown talent was also going to be on the September 5th edition of Raw. This led to a lot of speculation, right, that WWE was going to do the draft immediately after Clash at the Castle. However, Fightful Select actually reported today that the belief among the wrestlers is that those plans are no longer a slam dunk anymore. Several Raw stars have been unbooked from SmackDown following the Clash at the Castle. The report also noted that USA Network sources have told talent that the draft isn't happening in the immediate future and have outright stated that after WrestleMania is a likelier landing spot. Now, keep in mind, WWE hasn't announced anything about the WWE Draft, but if you are paying attention to the WWE product, maybe the draft taking place after WrestleMania would be a really good way to get in those massive call-ups, debuts, returns, whatever it may be, because the Raw and SmackDown is supposed to be a big deal after WrestleMania. Obviously, due to COVID, the last few years, it really hasn't felt like a big deal, but now that WWE is in full swing in motion, creating a really good product, I actually kind of like the idea of moving the draft to the first Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania. Let's get in those surprises. Let's get in those returns, those debuts, all of these great things. I want to see WWE make some changes to the WWE Draft, and I think that could be a really good way to do so. And that leads us to our final topic, because we're not done talking about these massive pushes. Guys, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has a big push coming for his career. Obviously, we have all seen that Kevin Owens is back to being the prize fighter. This is really awesome. Slice Wrestling, who we just spoke about earlier, also came out with a report. WWE officials are looking at placing Kevin Owens in the mid-card championship scene as a warm-up to display his dominance, which is the right way. Obviously, you want to use those mid-card titles to catapult people to the top. Triple H has plans for Kevin Owens to enter the United States Championship scene shortly and would like for him to go after bigger titles in the future. As Triple H continues to shape the landscape of the WWE Universe to his vision, it becomes clear that previously misused superstars are getting a new lease in their careers. Obviously, we all know that Kevin Owens has been a favorite of Triple H, but this idea that he is able to go for the U.S. Championship against maybe Bobby Lashley, for example, it really helps sets the tone that the mid-card titles actually mean something. Kevin Owens winning the belt would be a good thing. And then, of course, you know, being able to put these belts in the main event of Raw or SmackDown, whatever it may be, I think it's ultimately going to draw a big focus into the product and ultimately going to make those titles mean something. I like it. I think this is great stuff. I also want to see Kevin Owens go for the U.S. title. I want to see him actually make those titles mean something. And I want to see Kevin Owens drop it to somebody who makes sense. I think a lot of times people have kind of thought about this idea of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens eventually tag teaming together, and I think that could be a good idea as well. But I just don't know what to expect there. So we'll kind of see how things go. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And as always, don't forget to click subscribe.